So last time I was in this room, no kidding, I was DJing a wedding. So much different crowd, but super stoked to be here. Whenever I'm thinking about what I want to talk about at ClearanceJobs Connect, I always want to grab people's attention right from the beginning and keep everyone engaged. But I really always come back to the same thing, and it's just how grateful I am to be in this community and be in a room full of people that are really doing the hardest recruiting in the world and probably the hardest job at GovCon, which is finding talent for impossible to fill jobs. So give yourselves a round of applause, everybody. Super happy to be here chatting with you. So crazy time in the industry. I'm gonna hope I get this right, okay. Lots going on, right? I mean, we've got an industry that's evolving. We talked this morning a lot about this, hearing how things are changing, hearing contracts potentially could be canceled, or who knows what's happening in the current workforce when it comes to cleared work. So if you're anything like me, I've been very, very stressed out a lot. Really thinking about how is this going to affect my business? How is this going to affect the people that we employ? How is this going to affect the market in the future? So with that in mind, I really want to start this off with something positive. And I want to hear from the room, who has had something great happen today or this week when it comes to recruiting? Any offers or anything like that? You got an offer?
2 today.
That's my team. All right, good job. I had no idea. Who else? Anyone? Great, of course. All right, so that's rad. Yeah, I mean, that's why we're here, is to get people jobs. So when Lindy asked me to speak, she wanted me to speak on this topic, which is recruiting as sales, and how do you tie the C-suite into seeing the importance of recruiting within your organizations. So this is a really tricky topic, but I really believe in it, and I think it holds the secret to success in recruiting for 2025. Everyone's talking about AI. We hear about it all the time. This is going to be a huge part of our jobs, but I'm a firm believer, no matter what, process is better than technology, and you can't put technology on top of a bad process. It's just not going to work. So a lot of what I'm going to talk to you about today is exactly that, process. So we're going to talk about let me go back. So a little bit about me, just why am I up here? I've been in this space since 2008. You can tell by my beard, I've been recruiting in GovCon for quite some time. I've done a lot of program management, business development. I worked for a large government integrator for about 10 years before starting a company with my wife, who's here in the room today. And we do talent acquisition for small to mid-sized government contractors. So we're still in the industry. And I like to point this out because I think it gives me a really unique view into what companies are dealing with. We work with a ton of clients, but we also worked internal. So we know what internal teams are dealing with when they're trying to find talent. We know what the operations teams are dealing with. We know what the business development teams are dealing with. So it gives us a really holistic view on the space. So we will talk about 3 things today. Lindy said she wanted you to, remember one thing? I want you to remember 2 things. So process is really important in how we handle recruiting. And part of that is a sales mindset as well as alignment with your executives. So that's what we're going to start with here, is the market. Who could have thought we would be where we're at with our industry being on the front page news every single day? It's the instability in this industry, the perception of the stability is incredibly high. Who's talking to candidates that are freaked out about the market and changing right now? Everyone? Okay. So are you hearing this from the market, that they're like, I don't know if I want to switch jobs, or I don't even know if I want to enter this market? Is this a common theme with your candidates? Perfect. So every single day, they're reading blogs. They're checking out news stories. This is just like the past week of headlines about contract cuts, about contracts being ended, and it's just really creating a lot of anxiety in the space. So why is this important? Because we always have a supply and demand imbalance in the cleared market. There is always not enough candidates for the open jobs that we have, And this is only creating more issues and making it difficult to do our jobs. This is something that's interesting. There's a lot of people taking deferred resignation and potentially being laid off that are entering the contract workforce. And I think that this is actually going to spike the numbers a little bit, because I'm not sure if we can hire all of those people. I'm not sure if we can hire the federal employees into the contract jobs that we have. So this will be an artificial spiking of the amount of people that have clearances on clearance jobs per se. I mean, the numbers that we talked about this morning are like the views on clearance jobs, the people opening up their profiles, it's astronomically high. But the question is, can we use those people? Can we hire them? I hope we can, but I've been in this industry a long time, and I don't think we can with all of them. And then, are you hearing from any candidates who are leaving the space? Yeah, for sure. Like, people are like, I don't know if I can deal, with the instability right now. And a lot of this is because the market noise. There's just a lot of discussion around it, but this is the environment our candidates live within. This is like anyone's guess. What can we expect this year? So we did ClearanceJobs Connect in September, just right around the corner. And if you would have told me that we would be dealing with these types of issues in our market, I would have told you were nuts. But here's huge things. It is the end of the remote era. As much as I love remote work, we are seeing the federal government go back on site, and it is only a matter of time before contracting officers say, look, we need everyone to be on site. This is going to be a huge issue for people that are currently hiring remote workforce. Now, I don't want to scare anyone. I'm not going to name anything specifically, but from reporting that we've seen, there is a potential for delay in clearance adjudications this year if the contract workforce that supports clearance investigations potentially gets downsized. So unfortunately, I do believe that this year we are going to see it taking a longer amount of time for people to get clearances. Who's seeing a ton of counteroffers right now? Lots of counteroffers. This doesn't really make sense when companies are facing, project cuts and budget cuts. But if you think about it, companies want to hold on to their talent right now. They do not want to let them go. We are seeing counteroffers 20% higher than current salaries, things of that nature. This is going to be a really big deal when we talk about recruitment as sales and how to deal with these issues. Competing offers is another thing. There is a ton of opportunity in our space, as there always is. Candidates always have competing offers. Hesitancy to switch jobs, we talked about that. And then there's going to be a ton of questions around stability from candidates. So I've got a question. If a candidate was to ask you right now, are your contracts safe? Do you have the pitch to tell them about? Do you know what to say? Anyone no one wants to volunteer? Okay, what would you say if a candidate said, are your contracts safe?
Well, I would tell them that our biggest clients usually have 3 to 7 year contracts, and that's been the case for the last 15, 20 years. And I don't see it changing.
Perfect. I mean, the point is you have to have exactly what to say to the candidates because they're going to ask you. Everyone is going to ask this, and you need to be the person that builds trust and credibility through transparency. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. So the topic is twofold. It's getting your executives to buy into recruiting, and you may think that our executives support recruiting, and I'm going to tell you a story. I thought the same thing, that when I was working internal that my executives supported recruiting, and I'll tell you a story about how it was wrong. So I had just gotten promoted to Director of Talent Acquisition the same time my company decided to do 2 mergers concurrently. So I got promoted to the director of 6 business units, overseeing 16 recruiters. And in every single quarterly planning session, the executives would talk. They would say, recruiting is broken. Recruiting is broken. They continued to say recruiting is broken. And they said, hey, let's get Tommy to come to these meetings. And he can really talk about what's happening in the space and how recruiting is broken. So I got all my data. And I was talking about time to fill. I was complaining about hiring managers rescheduling interviews, inaccurate job descriptions, all the time that we had to close and reopen requisitions. And I went in there and I explained it to the group. And one of the business unit leaders looked at me and he said, hey, I want to speak to you in my office after this. So he started this sentence as, your data is. How do you think he finished it? What's that? Inaccurate. Okay, any other guesses? Yes. Who said that? Oh, come on. He said your data is BS. And I had to sit for, I was obviously a lot younger than I am now, but I didn't know what that meant at first. To me, what it meant was I was lying. And that's not the message I took away. I'm going to go back to this story, but before I do, I'm going to pick on metronome really quick. So you talked to me last night about, so I got a phone call from his boss a few weeks ago, and they said, I think we finally figured out recruiting. So how did you figure out recruiting in a very difficult industry?
Yeah, thanks. Totally not expecting that. I'll be hearing so soon. Director of Acquisition for Metronome. I got brought into the team about a year and a half ago, and we definitely, so Virgil, myself, and our crew, we really aligned on what our strategic goals were for recruiting. And I think you'll find in this space sometimes there's not a lot of data on some of the decisions we make. So I pulled a lot of data on some of our goals, time to fill, how long it's taking on recs that we were working a lot that really wasn't generating any value for the organization. So we approached it and revamped our team into a talent acquisition Scrum recruiting team. So all my recruiters are Scrum certified, I'm Scrum and Agile certified. So we run our recruiting process Agile and Scrum to align with the government, also align with my boss and our team. So, but it was a lot of communication with Virgil, our boss, and the crew and myself, and then disseminating that to the teams and then executing on it. But I will say one shout out to my team. So I have 2 recruiters now. This month we're hiring, so they'll hire 20 since January, 2 recruiters, and we had 2 today. So
awesome.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Wasn't expecting that, totally put him on the spot, but I was thinking about this last night, and I think it really illustrates the point is, and I think he sold himself a little bit short, but what they also did is they looked at contracts that said, hey, these are not like revenue generating. Why are we going to spend 2 months working on a $70,000 position? It's just not going to bring any revenue into the company. But what they did is they got aligned. So going back to my story with my BS data, this is what I learned. We weren't speaking the same language. I was coming in and complaining. I was like, look, here's the problems. It's the hiring managers. It's not the team. We're beating all of the industry metrics. Time to fill, we're crushing it. But we didn't have the problem defined. So the problem for him was, I don't care if you're filling the positions in 40 days, if I need them filled in 10. Like, it doesn't do me any good. So we were speaking different languages about a problem that we didn't define. What we were measuring was wrong, and generally speaking, we were not aligned as an organization. So this is how we fixed it, because there are issues with internal teams. It really takes a company to hire people. But the only people typically that have metrics around hiring are the recruiting team, where I know very well that recruiters touch about this much of the process. We influence the time and workflow, the time to fill by about this much. What do you think the longest part of your process is? Is it finding people, or is it scheduling the interviews and making a decision? Scheduling the interviews and making a decision. Why aren't we looking at that when we look at how the company is aligned with recruiting? So we implemented what's called time and workflow. And essentially what this is it looks at every single stage of the hiring process and how long it is taking to get through each stage, who has an SLA around it, and what their responsibility is to meet that SLA. So how long is it going to take to do clearance investigations? How long is it going to take to schedule interviews? How long is it going to take to get interview feedback? So this was a very, very powerful metric, and I think a lot of times in recruiting, everyone is looking at time to fill, which there's a reason to have that metric, but time and workflow, it really shows your entire hiring process and who's basically in charge of what in the process. So that was very beneficial. Does anyone in here track time and workflow? What company? Perfect. So hiring really does take a company, right? And this is why I want to talk about process. I've made this joke before, but AI is not going to fix inaccurate job requirements. If we don't know what we're recruiting, who has a problem with the accuracy of job requirements sometimes? Okay, so I mean, everyone is dealing with this. It doesn't reflect what we're actually hiring for. AI is not going to help that. This is something that will only be helped through an alignment within your company around hiring. Notice, I say hiring, not recruiting. Again, going back to that point of recruiting is only a small part of the puzzle here, and hiring takes an entire company. So recruiting as sales. Who here thinks recruiting is not sales? I've heard some people potentially have gotten away from thinking about recruiting as sales because somewhere along the line, this got a bad reputation. And it definitely is sales. You're selling the job to the candidate, selling the candidate to the hiring manager, selling the candidate to the customer. But what I want to focus on, I'm going to go off script a little bit here, so let me see what's ahead. Okay, yeah. So I want to focus on the psychology of sales. And again, there's not a tool out there that is going to increase the candidate flow of cleared candidates to your jobs. It is going to be your process, and it's going to be how you are handling the sales process with your candidates. So who here is like potentially losing candidates in the process due to it taking too long? I mean, has that happened? I mean, it all, right? These are things that we're all struggling with. But so what I want to focus on is if we look back at the market and we look back at everything that we've heard about today, that this is an insane time to be in the industry. Our candidates are being pounded on about how unstable it is. How do we use that in our approach? And it's really about looking at recruiting as being very empathetic and really understanding people's motivations. Like, what motivates people to switch jobs? What motivates people to take new jobs? If you can't get to the core of people's motivations, you're always at risk of candidates falling out of the process. Is this something that you guys can agree with? For sure. So it's definitely part of the sales process to look at how is this move going to affect the candidate and what other things might they be looking at? Like I even tell my own team, if a cleared candidate tells you that they have no other interviews scheduled, I mean, they're probably not being very forthcoming with their opportunities because of that supply and demand imbalance. Every recruiter or every candidate has different opportunities. I like to really drill recruiting down to this. It's finding people, it's connecting with people, and it's hiring people. If you're having problems finding people, you look at your sourcing. If you're having problems, what do you look at if you're having problems connecting with people? What's a metric that you might look at to see where the issue is? Anyone got a guess? So response rates, right? Like if you're not connecting with people, there's something in your messaging. So when we look at sales too, recruiting is massively marketing. And I'm gonna put somebody else on the spot here. Again, no heads up, but we are really gonna look a lot more like marketers in the near future. Companies are gonna want us to be able to bring eyes not only to our positions, but to the company brand. And we're seeing people effectively do this. There's people in this room that are very good at bringing eyes to their brand. So I want to hear from one who's using one of the ClearanceJobs products, the live streaming feature, to connect with audiences. So tell us a little bit about your experience with live and how it's allowed you to connect with your audience.
Okay, so this is nerve-wracking. Good to meet everyone. I'm Tony Martinez. I'm a principal intel recruiter over at a company called Blue Halo. Been doing this for 15 years. And I would say that number one, it's completely nerve-wracking for me to get out of my comfort zone to do these lives. We paid for the tool, and I wanted to use it ahead of time before we started getting questions about why aren't we using the tool? Why did we pay for this? So I got out of my comfort zone, and it's really allowed me to kind of express a different avenue in reaching candidates that won't answer a phone call or what have you, right? And one of the best things about it is we've gotten a couple of offers from some of the lives that we've done, and we've gotten interviews out of the lives that we've done. So I don't remember what your question was, but it enables
You nailed it.
it enables us to really reach people, because video is really consumable. It's easy to consume. Emails are not so easy to consume. And so when people sit there for an hour live with you and it turns into an offer, that's 7 hours less in my day that I have to spend trying to recruit that same candidate to get them an offer. So I think it's been amazing.
Awesome. Thank you. And again, just calling people on the spot here. So is anyone else using ClearanceJobs Live? Okay, so if you don't know what it is, look, I don't work for ClearanceJobs, but I think I need to say that. I really do believe in the platform. ClearanceJobs Live allows you to schedule live streams with people on the ClearanceJobs platform and basically host whatever content you want. And candidates then are able to watch you live, ask questions, interact with you, or they're able to watch a replay of these lives. So when we look at recruiting being marketing, this is the perfect example. But what this does is, look, when I did my first live, I was like, there's no way I'm getting a candidate on this. Like, there's absolutely no way. And every single time I've done one, I've gotten a resume, whether it's a junior level position or a DevOps CI Poly candidate. No kidding, they'll show up. But what you're doing is you're leveraging the trusted brand of ClearanceJobs. So when you think about candidates, they're getting hit up on all the other sites, they're getting hit up on email, they're getting text messages. What we're seeing in our own company is the activity in ClearanceJobs is increasing tremendously, and they're wanting to communicate on there. So before, no offense, but like when I would send messages on ClearanceJobs, I'm like, there's no way people are like responding to these messages, but now they do. Like, it's because they trust the brand, and they've done such a good job marketing to candidates that it allows them to come on and feel safe to speak on there. So I would highly suggest looking into Live if your company is not using it. I'm sure a lot of the companies have marketing teams that could help you with the content. But anyways, so huge thing there. Thank you, Tony, for being a guinea pig. Talked about this, but again, the importance of marketing. So does this kind of like give anyone like the ick, the feeling of like, oh my God, I don't want to like create content for my job? Is anyone really hesitant to do it? Yeah, I mean, it could be really nerve-wracking, but this is, again, not only are you amplifying your company brand, you're curating a network that allows you to build trust within the space. And this is really important for recruiters, especially in the cleared market. So, sales and recruiting psychology. Before the current situation that we were in, we would apply this to like proposal recruiting, right? Like, when you're recruiting proposals, it's very difficult to get people to sign contingent offer letters. They're being contacted by many companies, and how are they going to choose your company to sign a contingent offer letter for? This is the same kind of idea, right? Like, it's this idea of transparency. You will get very, very far in cleared recruiting with your candidates if you are transparent and if you're well informed about not only the industry that we serve, but the contracts that we're supporting. I cannot overstate this enough, that candidates are looking for people that have information, especially in today's market dealing with everything that we're dealing with. You should be the ones that are giving them that information and that are coming across as informed. Because I can tell you right now that for a lot of recruiters, like, I try to be as informed as possible. And if I'm speaking to a candidate, I will be a source of information. And if you're going to them without information, like, hey, what is the stability of this contract? And if you say, I don't know, we don't know how this is going to be affected, like, even if that is the truth, there's a better way to say it. So we need to be thinking about how is the current market affecting, or the current situation affecting the marketplace? What are they dealing with, and how can I address that in these recruiting conversations? And then I talked about this briefly, but digging into candidate motivations. So it's so important to understand why people are wanting to make a switch right now. And having these conversations about making switches or entering this industry or leaving this industry, you're probably going to disqualify a lot more people than we used to, because you find out that they are not aligned. But those folks will be falling out of the process when it comes time to do an offer anyways. So this is very, very important, is understanding people's motivation. Why are they looking to make a move? What do they want to do? And what are these other things that are affecting their job search? So I tried to leave some time for questions. I don't know if I did or didn't, but I do really appreciate having the opportunity to speak to everyone here. I'm going to be around all day. Would love to chat anything about recruiting, or if you have any questions, please feel free to come up to me, and I thank you for your time.
There's time for 2 questions. Give Tommy a really hard, awful question. Okay, please. Hey!
Uh-oh.
Great speech, Tommy. Not too hard, but how do you differentiate between time to fill and time to process? Like, where's the cutoff? What's the difference between that?
That's an awesome question. So time to fill is how long did it, this is a really important distinction. How long did it take from the time we opened the job to the time we closed it? And I put it in quotes there because that doesn't account for how long the job sat before we opened it, right? So time in workflow, what we really look at is how long did it take to get the first submit? From the first submit, how long did it take to schedule the interview? From the interview, how long did it take to make a decision? From the decision, how long did it take to do an offer? From an offer, how long did it take to onboard? And so on the ClearanceJobs Connect stage, Amy Buchko said once, this is how you find the dead bodies in your process. And I just love that saying, because I do think great hires die in bad process, but you're really analyzing every step. And the whole purpose of it is to say, why is it taking us 4 days to check security clearances? Why is it taking us 7 days to schedule interviews? So yeah, that's the distinction. Thank you.
I love that. Thank you, Tommy. Tommy's fantastic. Thank you for that great presentation. And I love everything that you said. I love the content piece of it. This is huge. I will say, be careful the content you share, because Katie Helbling shared a security clearance miss post on LinkedIn, and then I found her and stalked her and said, will you please meet me in a hotel lobby? I have a suitcase and leopard print shoes. We might have a job for you. So sharing content is like a great way to find jobs. I say, like, plagiarism. You can take the content of the ClearanceJobs and leverage it across your companies. We want you to do that. We want you to be sharing the content we create. Tommy's fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you.